So there's been some new updates to the Kenobi series, and yeah, it's not what we were hoping for, but there might be more to this news than we realize. So if you recall, Daniel RPK recently dropped a rumor that season 2 of Kenobi was in development, and yeah, it blew up fast. Pretty much every major entertainment outlet picked up on it and ran with it. But here's the thing, it might have just been clickbait, because unfortunately just a few days ago, Jeff Snyder from The Insider reported that Lucasfilm actually has no plans for a second season of Obi-Wan Kenobi. And that's pretty disappointing, because I feel like there's a lot left to Obi-Wan Kenobi's life that wasn't explored. You know, Kenobi season 1 didn't really go that deep. Most of it felt kind of surface level. And yeah, we did get a confrontation with Vader like Lucasfilm promised. And we did see Obi-Wan reconnect with the Force, sure. But there's so much more that could have happened. And as I mentioned previously, Ewan McGregor has been incredibly vocal about wanting to come back for a second season. You know, he's talked about exploring Obi-Wan's exile in a way that kind of gets inside Obi-Wan's head. He's talked about having flashbacks to the Clone Wars where we'll see Obi-Wan in his Clone Wars armor. And this is just a couple things that could help elevate Kenobi season 2 in general. And it's really disappointing to hear that we might not get season 2 now. Now, something I've been pleasantly surprised by with all these Kenobi rumors is the fan reaction in regards to the possibility of getting a season 2. You know, I personally thought that the majority of Star Wars fans would have been against the second season, seeing how most of us were kind of let down by the lack of emotional weight in the show and how gimmicky season 1 felt at times. But almost everyone, ranging from the average fan to the largest Star Wars content creators, has been in favor and wants to see season 2 of Kenobi. And even so, it seems like we are not going to get a continuation to Obi-Wan's story. Yeah, there's always the possibility we get a continuation in a book or in animation, but the vast majority of the fans want to see Ewan McGregor in live action. And this is all because of Disney's strategic shift. You know, they want to bring Star Wars back to theaters, something I'm in favor for. But besides Ahsoka Season 2 and Visions, along with the Maul animated series, there is nothing slated for Disney Plus. Everything is going to be movies moving forward. And this is why a second season of Kenobi isn't going to happen. But just because we're not going to get a television series for Kenobi doesn't necessarily mean that we won't get a continuation for Obi-Wan Kenobi overall. Now, as someone that's worked in a corporate environment for 15 years, Jeff Snyder's statement seems very corporate speak. By him saying Lucasfilm currently has no plans for a second season of the Disney Plus series, he's essentially confirming that Disney has shut the door on the possibility of a continuation of Kenobi's story through a series. But what sticks out to me is how he phrases this update. He's not necessarily saying that the story is done, just that it won't continue in a series format. It almost seems like he's leaving a backdoor open just in case Lucasfilm decides to do a Kenobi movie, which honestly seems a lot more likely to happen now with how things are moving forward strategically with Disney. Now, the big question is, did Snyder choose his words carefully to avoid being wrong later, or if this statement was structured by someone inside Disney to control the messaging without fully closing off future possibilities? And personally, I think it'd be the latter. I think it's likely that this scoop was given to Snyder out of the good graces of Disney. So yeah, saying no plans for a second season doesn't rule out a Kenobi movie, and I wouldn't be surprised if we get an announcement at the next Star Wars Celebration, because we've even heard straight from Ewan McGregor himself that he's been in active discussions with Lucasfilm. And let's not forget that Kenobi was originally conceived as a movie, and not just one, but a full trilogy. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all if the next chapter of Obi-Wan's journey ends up on the big screen, and honestly, I'd be shocked if it didn't. I mean, you've already got the lead actor eager to return, you've got the villain in Hayden Christensen ready to suit up again, and you know, there are incredible writers out there who are excited at the chance to write for Star Wars and that are true Star Wars fans. And most importantly, you have the fans who are wanting, who are excited excited for a second part to Kenobi's story. And honestly, switching from a series to a film might be exactly what Kenobi needs. It's a tighter format, it's a bigger canvas, and kind of a chance to course correct some of the tones and pacing issues we saw in season 1. Now, thanks to all the rumors flying around about Kenobi, we got some new information, and I think it's incredible. And at least this might be just new information to me. I hadn't seen it before, but thanks to a piece by Game Rant about Star Wars Underworld, the canceled live action series that George Lucas had pretty much fully written just before selling Star Wars to Disney, apparently George had plans to include Obi-Wan in that show. And yeah, it's wild because, as I said, I hadn't seen this report before, so I was genuinely surprised. The article goes, one of George Lucas's biggest plans was to create a television show that would bridge a gap between episode 3 and 4. The show was set to showcase a slightly darker side of the galaxy, hence the name Star Wars Underworld. But one of the ideas that Lucas had could end up being brought back within Obi-Wan Kenobi's upcoming second season. Lucas wanted Obi-Wan Kenobi to return to Coruscant to face off against Darth Maul in one epic final showdown between the two characters. The series would have explored Maul's rise to dominance again, with Obi-Wan seeking revenge for the fact that Maul killed Obi-Wan's master, Qui-Gon Jinn. Now, obviously in canon, this concept for Obi-Wan wanting revenge has changed thanks to the events in Star Wars Rebels, but I think it's really interesting that George Lucas originally planned for Maul to operate right under the Emperor's nose, building up his criminal empire through the underworld networks on Coruscant, and that makes sense because as Palpatine's former apprentice, Maul would have learned those same lessons in deception and manipulation, using them to his advantage by hiding from his greatest enemy in plain sight. And it's a perfect mirror of what Darth Sidious did, working from the shadows right under the Jedi Council's nose, and now Maul flips that dynamic and hides in the shadow of the Empire itself, quietly growing his influence while Palpatine's attention is elsewhere. And it makes sense that Maul would want to build his criminal empire on Coruscant, since there are trillions of people and layer upon layer of corruption, and it's the ultimate breeding ground for a criminal empire to rise without ever being noticed. And on paper, Obi-Wan tracking down Maul to avenge Qui-Gon sounds like a strong story. There's a long history between the two of them. Maul killed Obi-Wan's master, Qui-Gon Jinn, and that moment changed everything. It's what pushed Obi-Wan to become a Jedi Knight. It's what led him to take on Anakin as his Padawan, and what sparked Maul's obsession with Obi-Wan Kenobi. And every time they cross paths, whether it's in the Clone Wars or Rebels, it's never just another fight, it's decades of pain, loss, and unfinished business. So yeah, seeing Obi-Wan want to get revenge on Maul with all that history could have made for a powerful arc, but I think the version we got in canon is actually way closer to who Obi-Wan really is, or who he eventually becomes by episode 4 A New Hope. You know, as we've heard time and time again, by the time they meet in Rebels, Obi-Wan isn't angry, he's not looking to settle a score, he's calm, he's centered, he fights not for revenge, but because Maul threatens Luke. The duel is quick, it's not overly flashy, it's just a few strikes and it's over, but emotionally and thematically it's loaded. Obi-Wan doesn't just recognize Maul's move, he baits him into using it by shifting into the stance Qui-Gon used during their duel in The Phantom Menace. He triggers Maul's ego, and Maul sees what he thinks is a repeat of history, lunges in what is the same strike that killed Qui-Gon, and Obi-Wan is ready for it. He counters instantly. It's not just a tactical win, it's closure. It's Obi-Wan honoring his master by turning Maul's arrogance against him, and when it's over, Obi-Wan doesn't gloat. He shows Maul compassion and holds him in his final moments, and in that moment it says everything about who Obi-Wan has become. He's not chasing revenge, he's protecting hope. He's not living in the past, he's living in the moment, and that feels way more true to the Jedi we meet in A New Hope. Now Space 3828 asks, how can they show Obi-Wan's confliction with not being able to save Anakin, but then having to look after his son, and how would he struggle with whether he should kill or nurture Luke's skills? Now there's a lot of ways to go about this, but I think a good way to show the conflict in Obi-Wan in teaching Luke Skywalker after what happened to his father would be to show Obi-Wan being hesitant in showing Luke the ways of the Force. Maybe his guidance is restrained. He teaches changes Luke, but it's only in bits and pieces, never fully. And that's out of fear of unleashing in Luke what Obi-Wan couldn't control in Anakin. Because as we've seen, Luke has a lot of the same tendencies as Anakin, such as rushing to save his loved ones, the fear of loss, such as when Luke abandons his training with Yoda in order to save Han and Leia because of visions he had seen. You could have a moment when Luke shows anger, much like Anakin's own anger, and this could cause Obi-Wan to almost walk away out of fear, but then shifts and chooses to stay, choosing faith over his own fear. And this could signify a shift in Obi-Wan's beliefs, because by the time we meet Obi-Wan in A New Hope and throughout the original trilogy, Obi-Wan no longer has doubts in Luke's abilities. Let me know in the comments if you're disappointed by this news that we will not be getting a Kenobi Season 2, or would you prefer a Kenobi movie? If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a like, and if you want more Star Wars content, subscribe. I hope you guys have a great day, and may the Force be with you.